You don't get to choose to not pay a price. You only get to choose which price you pay.
It's not our job to figure out the how, right? It's our job to figure out the why. To take ownership or responsibility is to you to completely forfeit your right to blame.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of our series Discovering Purpose. Today I'm joined by my good friend Matt Lee. Matt Lee is the founder of Allergic to Average. He's a motivational speaker, mindset coach. He does a lot of things, and I don't want to take anything away from you, so
Gotcha.
Tell me a little bit.
Yeah, so Matt Lee, I'm a father, a husband primarily, and outside of that, it's kind of evolved into more of the entrepreneurship route. And so different industries, different businesses have been a part of my journey and figuring out a lot of the purpose talk. And so across from Monument Company, helping across with a moving company, food truck, again, motivational speaking, Allergic to Average, I DJ. And a lot of this is just, these are ways that I found that have helped me to kind of serve in a way that brings out purpose. We can talk about that a lot more. But within all that, it's a lot more focused on what is the mentality, what is the actual thought process of a person and how much that impacts us, no matter what it is you're doing. So that's what's kind of gotten me involved in so much. But primarily, how do we kind of dissect the thoughts and the beliefs behind, whether it's a business, relationship, or just anything you do in life. And so anyways, that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to continue to talk about this today.
Nice, man. I thought this would be a perfect spot for you because today we're talking about the clues are in your story.
Right.
So we're really digging into identifying the patterns, the passions, and looking into the patterns in your life that hold the clues for your purpose. Because sometimes they're annoying, sometimes they are frustrating.
Yep.
But learning to switch those, which I just want to briefly say, you helped me a lot with that. You've been that mentor for me, breaking a lot of those mindsets. So I'm really appreciative of you for that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm just grateful that you're doing this with me.
Yes.
If you're wondering where Jeremy is, really quick, he actually got involved in a really bad four-wheeling accident. He's recovering okay. He, for lack of a better word, he just broke his face. So,
and this one's for you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
This one's an honor for you today. Okay?
Yes, sir. I need my people to stop breaking their faces.
Right.
But so let's get into it. The clues are in your story. So the first part, we want to talk about your story has meaning, even the broken parts. So just right off the bat, I want to ask you, what's something you see going on in today's culture when it comes to mindset? Can we even just break down what mindset means? Because I think there's some people that don't even know what mindset is.
True, yeah. And so I feel like, just for starters, there's something that really I feel like opens up in your way of being. It's really a law, much like gravity, right? The law of being, which is your highest thoughts, your highest emotions, feelings, beliefs, to the core of who you are, where that's at. Not what you think you want or what you are pushing or maybe motivating yourself for, but who you truly are to the core. A lot of people can project, or they seem like a very positive or happy person, but to the core, they're scared. They're terrified. They want abundance, but the core of who they are is still tied into lack and that they're not good enough, this and that. So mindset, though, goes back to right thinking, right thought, the power of tapping into what do I truly believe, and from those beliefs, they produce thoughts every single day, right? And so for you to get intentional about mindset, what is mindset? It's really an intentional practice and process of aligning your thoughts to truth versus fear. And so in our world, like what you said, what's a common thing? You look into spirituality, you look into the message of, Jesus Christ and God the Father, if you look at even the message that Buddha brought or Gandhi, or these were all understandings that the pattern and the way that like the energy of the world around us is completely 180 from the kingdom of heaven. And so a lot of our thought processes within our culture today, our world is embedded in fear. That's what drives sales. That's what drives, people to continue to feel like this is what I need next, right? So you're constantly hearing from billboards to ads to, stuff on social media. It's always trying to sell you on what you're missing, what's not good enough about you right now, or what would make you better.
Yeah.
The kingdom message, the understanding of purpose, where you've been created from and who you are, is completely different than that. It's completely 180. And so most people come into our world, majority of people come into our world, and they feel like they have to find and really fight for purpose, confidence within their mind, right? So mindset, I'm saying a long answer here, but mindset is you going back to you are responsible and you're taking ownership for aligning yourself in truth versus fear. So the world embedded with fear.
So it's basically just like taking accountability for your own thought processes, because really you act in accordance to how you believe.
Right.
And there's a lot of, that was something big that like you helped me out with, was shifting a lot of those mindsets. Really the accountability piece too. I think that's the biggest piece.
Yep.
So why is it so hard for people to confront or take accountability?
I think so much of it is like, it's literally just that. It's to take ownership or responsibility over something is to you to completely forfeit your right to blame.
Oof. Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to give up, because it's so much easier to blame your upbringing, your parents, your spouse, your kids, your neighborhood. And if we can do that defers us from having to step into a new way of showing up or making another decision, or maybe admitting I was wrong, right? And most people, we just don't like to do that because it does something to our ego, right? And so it's a lot easier. And the average person, when we talk about allergic to average, what the average does, the common does versus the intentional, the allergic to average is you take full responsibility for where your life is at, and where your life is going at the same time. And it's hard to do that, because when you start to realize that it is nobody else's fault, it is nobody else's responsibility to put me where I am today and to put me where I want to go tomorrow, that's up to me. Most people hear that as scary and terrifying because ego, but it's actually really freeing.
Yeah.
Because you're no longer putting your purpose, your passion, your gift to the world on somebody else or why you can't do it. You're actually liberated when you take ownership and say, it's with me. It's for me. I got this. My God is going to show me. He's going to teach me. He's going to take me. And so you get out of this blame, right? And you get into ownership, responsibility. And that's the most, again, liberating thing for us, that not only as individuals, but as a collective,
right?
Because our world is like so saturated with help me. I need your help. Like everybody wants, and so, anyways, I think that's why it's so difficult, because we get programmed and taught to blame, to push, to defer, to give it to him. No, it was their fault. It was, and I'll say this and we can go to the next thing, but what happened to you, what was done to you when you were younger, what you were taught, right or wrong, that wasn't your fault, right?
Right.
But who you are today and with what you know and how you're moving forward, it's always your responsibility to deal with the trauma, the pain, the hurt. And it's a lot easier to put light and emphasis on somebody else's pain, dark trauma than it is our own.
Yeah.
So
a visual like I always think of is, there's the quote, you can't choose the cards you were dealt. It's just up to you how you play the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me, like I was unhappy with the cards I was dealt. And I wanted new cards. I wanted a new hand, but that's not.
Most people do.
Yeah.
And they'll spend their whole life trying to bargain or trade or pretend that they have this other pair when it's not even there. Mm-hmm. Instead of sitting at the table and going through losing some games, this and that, but learning how to, and I feel like that's truly the gift. I mean, some of us, we come out and that hand we're dealt, and it had nothing to do with us. It was the responsibility and ownership of the people before us that we got to benefit some because of their lack of responsibility ownership. We came in and we had to experience that. But no matter where it's at, we have, through ownership responsibility, the ability and responsibility to upgrade your hand. Learn how to play your hand. Learn how to get confident with your hand. And also learn how to make trades, take losses that get you closer to wins. But most people, like, again, they just think, if I had that guy's hand, I would be so much further. Yeah. Or the day that hand hits my hands, I'll be good. Instead of, realizing you have the ability to go create a new hand, to show up and trade and play enough so that you get an upgrade. And it's through the process of doing that. It doesn't just happen. It actually unfolds, right?
Yeah. And I think for me too, like especially getting started on this journey, it was a lot more folding and a lot more surrender.
Yeah.
And it challenged my ego.
Yep.
Because I was wrong, and that sucked sitting with for a long time. Just realizing how wrong my perspective of even just the world was, how I interacted with people. But by folding those hands and upgrading my hand, now I feel more confident to play the game.
Right.
So when we talk about this stuff, I feel like it's also tagged along with, we talk about this and there's a lot of struggle with it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what loses a lot of people, is because they're like, well, I hear these guys talking about, upgrading their hand, improving their mindset, and it's tough and it's surrender and there's suffering involved maybe. Why would I do that?
Right.
So like, what would you tell somebody to encourage them? Like, the pursuit of upgrading your hand is worth it.
I mean, I have the belief that from a higher intelligence, from the creator that we came from, whoever, anybody can believe that is, but the reality is, like, I think that's what life really came down to is, through your process, you learn all these things that we want. You learn confidence by going through very uncomfortable times. You learn resilience by going through broken, shattered moments in your life. You go through seasons where you're broken, maybe through trauma. Maybe it was somebody hurt you in the past. They rejected you. They did you wrong. We all experience that. But there's a process of, like, I think it's so crazy that when something gets broken on the body, like a bone, that it actually comes back and it's stronger later through that brokenness. So it's like understanding that what sounds like going through suffering and brokenness seems like a loss. Like, why would I do that? Why would I go down? But it's like when you understand, like, Jesus going to the wilderness and secluding himself, not just to be by himself and be lonely. There was an exchange of, I'm going to give something so that I can receive something. And out of that, it left him at a higher, stronger, stance in his position and his perspectives of what is actually real and true. And so
I think that's the biggest piece too. What's real and true.
Right. What is actually true? Yeah. What is actually real and true? Not what am I believing is true. And so to go through the process of sometimes the struggle, the pain, the messiness, the reason it's worth it is because that's literally what brings us into clarity. That there's two types of ways that we experience, the way things should be. We get it and we see it in the right example, or we see it in the wrong example. Yeah. Now that's our parents' upbringing. That's our past relationships. That's friendships. That's, anytime you took a risk to do something and it didn't work out, but it always leaves us with a little bit more clarity at the end.
Yeah.
So if I did something, I didn't like it, or I bombed it. I remember one of my first speeches ever. I was just like, why do I want to talk to people? Why am I putting myself in this position? But what it did was it made me more clear on what I need to do the next time, or what I shouldn't do the next time.
I want to delete the first 5 episodes of the podcast.
Right.
I look at them and it's like, why did I think that was a good idea? But
if you don't do that, if you don't at least give yourself the permission and freedom to take the risk and, to be bad at times, we always start out bad at something. And, you don't go through the bad season. Everybody wants to get to the badass, right? I want to be badass in this. But if you don't go through the bad and learn through, the reps and through the failures, you can never get to badass. You'll just always be stuck at bad. I'm just bad.
If you're not willing to be the fool, you can't be the master.
Yes, that same exact concept right there is understanding. It's through the being and the doing that sets you apart.
That's so good.
It's not we all think it's the having and then the doing. Then this is what gets the world to see me as somebody different, somebody that's important. But no, it's the most powerful people are the ones that are being, like, they carry a sense of, I am love. I am created with purpose. I got a story. And it may not be for the whole world, right? But they understand, and they're being love. They're being a solution. They're being contrast to people and help, and they're doing that too. There's a clear difference. And we know the difference too. When we see it, people often can say, this is who I am. This is who I am. And then they do something way different, or they're doing something versus who they're being. Is like, it's an alignment, right? And so the only way to really get into that alignment for us is to go through this process of struggle, to go through this process of really dissecting our heart and our mind to see what is true, what is real, what do I need to let go of and abandon, and what do I need to actually invite and surrender into. Yeah. And so that's a part of, changing up your hand. When we talk about spirituality, now we're talking about, you don't only get to upgrade your hand, this and that. You now know the house dealer who controls the game, who runs the game, right?
And we all like those dealers that tell you, like, hey,
no, fold. All right. And it's so funny because when you have a good one, like a guy that's actually about, and that's our God to us. He knows what hand we have, and he's a part of you winning just as much as you want to be a part of that winning.
Yeah, he wants you to win.
But that's the surrender part, though. Yes. Right now, it's again our responsibility to upgrade, to play, to learn, to study. But then at certain points, when there's no way I'm going to win by myself, you surrender it to the table and you say, hey, okay, teach me the next game. Yeah. Show me the next hand. Okay, let's go again. And so these are game changers. But again, the common mindset within our world operating is completely 180 from what the truth and who we've been designed to be. And a part of that is going through, like, I can't speak on, like, I know his specific story, but if you look at, like, even the Buddha, a lot of his stuff was because of him watching the suffering of other people that got him to step up into enlightenment, right? Jesus Christ looking at the Pharisees and how this religion was getting used to bind people more than it was to free people, seeing that pain, seeing that struggle, right? Going through his ministry, enlightening Martin Luther King, to see how people were getting discriminated and mistreated and the equality, it drove him to step up and to get clarity where he once didn't have that. And so that pain and that struggle and that, dude, I know it. I mean, and anybody who's ever taken the time to try to upgrade themselves and to try to be one with thyself is going to know that kind of struggle and patience. But that's the exchange, I feel like, to continue to tap into the greatness you were designed for. Yeah. Right? That's the exchange. That's what it takes is you surrendering, giving, relying, and then you're allowing that to be poured back into you. And at the end of the day, I think that's just part of the process, but that's what makes it so hard to play.
Yeah.
Because that's what it takes to play.
That's good. So digging in a little more, can we talk about looking at parts of your story that maybe didn't make sense at the time and looking at it, maybe it was preparing you for your purpose and it wasn't so much an obstacle? I'll share a brief story real quick. Actually, how you challenged me through some of my frustrations of where I was at that time. But when I first started social media management and content creation and all that, social media is a beast. And it changes all the time, and algorithms, and nobody really knows what. And I can't even give you the definition of that algorithm.
Right.
But there was a time whenever I was starting to try to help you with yours, and I was doing it for everybody else, and I just felt like nothing was taking off, like views were inconsistent, and I wanted to give it up. And you had a meeting for Allergic to Average with a couple of your members of your team, and I walked into that meeting literally planning to tell y'all I was stepping back from social media management.
Yeah, I remember this.
And then, so I was sitting there quiet and y'all were talking, and then you looked at me and you were like, Q, how does that work? And I was like,
Right.
And then Jess asked something else, and I was like, oh, it's just this. And then you asked something, and long story short, like 10 minutes of me speaking and to giving you answers and hearing myself talk about how knowledgeable, and it's not even that I was an expert,
Right.
but I had the fundamentals down.
Right.
And
so you were an expert to us in that because we didn't even know the fundamentals.
But I didn't look at myself as an
Right.
I thought I sucked.
Right.
At it, So like leaving that conversation and realizing like how much I actually knew pushed me to where I'm at now. And now like I can't imagine doing anything else, Yeah. So that's just a moment where I turned that frustration and ready to give up into now what is putting food on the table for my family, and that's what's providing, So that's just a quick story. That's a shallow way that you helped me, but all right. So that was section 1 of our talk of the clues are in your story. If you're unfamiliar, we do release podcast. We record the full conversation. We release it part 1 on Monday, part 2 on Wednesday, part 3 on Friday, or the full episode on Saturday. So follow along with this week or just wait for the full episode on Saturday.